Great, so section 4, why use Agile? So we've already covered some of the value principles, and we've looked at the Agile funnel, so we're starting to get an understanding of what Agile is and Agile as a philosophy and the different components. But the big question is, why do we use Agile? Why do we not just use another project management tool? Why do we use anything at all? Why don't we just get on and do the work? And it's a really valid question. So in this section, we're going to be looking a bit at the Stacey Matrix, and we're going to look at why would you use Scrum versus Kanban? Why would you use any project management tool at all? And actually what's important to remember, going back to the history, is that we work and we live in a digital age now. So the way in which products are produced, the technology is far more unknown because it's developing all the time. And what the customer wants is changing all the time as well, because the world is moving so fast. So we're going to have a look at the Stacey Matrix and what that means for Agile practices.
Okay, so the Stacey Matrix. What you can see now on screen is the visual of what the Stacey Matrix is. And you'll see we've got on one side the what, so what it is we're trying to deliver or trying to achieve. And on the bottom you can see the how. And that's how we go about doing it and how we think we're going to achieve the things we're setting out to. And you can see the different sections. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see it's about the simple things that we know how to do and we know what it is we're doing and how we're going to get there. And what you often see is that that's where traditional waterfall project management and styles of development sit, because we're really clear and none of those requirements are changing throughout. You move into this complicated place where it doesn't change quite as much, but there's still some complications about what it is and how we're going to achieve it. Then you get into the really complex place. So as Ben mentioned, it's about the change of requirements. It's about how things evolve and how we learn throughout, about not just what it is we're trying to deliver, but also how we're trying to deliver as well. And then you get into the top right-hand side, and this is the chaotic environment where we see that everything's changing constantly. We're almost really reactive to the situation. It's almost like this firefighting kind of mindset that we often see teams and organisations in. And predominantly what we see is that Scrum can work really well in the complex environment and Kanban can work really well in the chaotic environment. Having said that, Kanban can work elsewhere, and we do see it used elsewhere as well. But those are the two areas where you kind of can get the real feel for where the value can come from.
Cool. So let's look at an example. So let's say you're building a house. In years gone by, you can use a very waterfall or a very step-by-step project management methodology, because generally the customer knows what they want. They know they want a house with a front door and a garage and 5 windows. And the builders are going to know how they're going to build it, because building methods probably haven't changed or won't change much as time goes on. So you can say, right, well, first we're going to lay the foundations, and then straight after that we're then going to build the walls, and then we're going to stick the roof on. I don't build houses, so I'm not sure if this is right, but then after that you're going to fit the kitchen and so on. And you can follow a step-by-step process. And over the 6 months that it takes to build this house, the chances are what the customer wants is not going to change. And the chances are the way that you build the house are not going to change either. So if we're looking at the Stacey Matrix, you can see that it's going to fall into that kind of lower corner where you know the technology and you know the customer requirements. Now, let's think about today. If you're building an application, let's say you're building an app for your phone or an app for a piece of computer software or a customer, the chances are the technology, so that axis on the Stacey Matrix in terms of how you're going to build it, is going to be fairly unknown. So the technology could change in the 6 months to a year that it takes you to build this product. New developing languages come out all the time. New frameworks to build apps come out all the time. So, that's fairly unknown. On the other axis on the Stacey Matrix, you've got the customer requirements. Now, we know that in the digital age, things are changing so often and so regularly. Yep. It's very difficult to know what the customer wants until you put it in front of them. And actually, by the time you've done that, the world is probably going to change as well. So we find ourselves further out on the axis for customer requirements as well. And that's when building a digital product, or building most products in today's day and age, they're going to fall into that kind of upper corner of the Stacey Matrix, where you've got more unknown in terms of how you build it and more unknown in terms of what the customer wants. And depending on The balance of those unknowns will determine whether actually using something like Scrum is better, or Kanban, or another Agile methodology. But generally speaking, the further out you move on this Stacey Matrix of customer requirements and technology, the more likely and the more useful it will be to use an Agile methodology to build that product.
So, key takeaways. Key takeaway number 1. Agile can be really useful for tackling complex and chaotic problems and environments. Key takeaway number 2. It's really important to consider the requirements, what it is you're delivering, and then how it is you want to deliver that. Key takeaway number 3. Today's world is very digital and is constantly changing, and this is why the Agile frameworks and ways of working can be really useful. So we've just covered why we would use Agile and in what situations is it most useful. What we're going to do is go on now to look a little bit more in detail at the Agile values.